Okay. All right. Welcome everybody to this third episode of All Roads Lead to ETHRome. Here
Hi,
today with
everyone.
us, there's Frank from Hurbe and ETHRome as well, and we also have Greg from ENS.
Hello.
Hello everybody again. So a brief introduction about ETHRome and the series before starting. So ETHRome is the fourth Web3 hackathon happening in Rome. It's happening on October 6th to October 8th. So it's a weekend hackathon, and it's focused on topics such as governance and privacy topics. And ENS, we are really proud to say that is one of the sponsors for the hackathon. So if you come hacking that weekend, you could meet, ENS people, build on ENS, and create something meaningful, hopefully. This series of live stream is something that we are doing to, involve the sponsors and partners before the hackathon starts, so that you hackers and developers out there can learn more about projects and protocols that are involved in our event, and hopefully you get to know them more, and maybe you come up with, I don't know, some ideas, or you clarify some doubts that you have about them, so that during the hackathon you are fully prepared for it. But without further ado, I will ask you, Greg, to give a quick intro about yourself, maybe an intro about and a general view about ENS, and yeah, let's start.
Totally. Yeah. Well, first of all, I'll say thanks for having me on. You said you're excited and proud to have us as a sponsor, and we are equally as excited to be a sponsor and be joining you guys in Rome. So very excited about that. And I've met you guys at past events. Always a fun time hanging out. So excited to bring that back in Rome. But yeah, I'm Greg. I do DevRel at ENS Labs. And ENS Labs is the core contributors and the creators of ENS, the Ethereum Name Service. And I have some slides here that might be an easier way to explain ENS. So give me a second as I share the screen and hopefully keep everything going smoothly. Okay. How does that look on your side? Can you guys see it?
No, I can't see it actually.
No? Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't press.
Yeah.
Okay. How about
okay.
Now?
Yeah. Now we can see it.
Okay. Wonderful. Cool. So before I actually do this, I'm curious how many people in the chat have heard of ENS before, or maybe have an ENS name, or some familiarity with it. And if you do, great. This might be a little bit basic, and we'll get into the more fun stuff later. But if you don't, that's totally okay. And we're going to bring you through the basics right now. So what is ENS? ENS at the core is a decentralized permissionless naming protocol that lives on Ethereum and scales to the entire internet. And so that's like one initial misconception, I think, with ENS is people think it's an Ethereum name service. So it is a name service on and for only Ethereum, but actually it's really just like powered by Ethereum and works kind of across Web3. And we can get into more detail on exactly how that works a little bit later if we want to go into the details. And the easiest way to understand what ENS is kind of comparing it to DNS, right? DNS is how domains work on the web. So before we had google.com, we had an IP address. And obviously, nobody thinks about IP addresses today, unless you're a crazy developer. And you just know google.com is google.com. It's not an IP address. ENS, at the very core, is that same problem, right? You have a long address, and it can resolve into a name, and the other way around. You'll see here that like the problem in crypto is actually worse than in DNS in the Web2 world, because these EVM addresses are impossible to remember, and that's just like you're never going to. And so ENS, the goal is to kind of abstract away the addresses, right? It doesn't replace it technically, but it abstracts it for users. And so we'll see that in a second. Really, the goal is that anywhere you read or write an Ethereum address, or really any crypto address, you should be able to read or write an ENS name instead. And so if you just look at this screenshot on the right of Luke.eth sending something to gregscroll.eth, and gregscroll.eth sending something out to OX554, and so on, it's pretty easy to see, at least in my opinion, which one of these is like a better user experience, which one is more clear to kind of the average user. And this is what ENS enables across Web3. Here's another example of using it out in the wild. MetaMask, a very popular wallet, instead of sending assets to a random address that I have to copy and paste and hope I don't have like attacks in the middle of it. Basically, I can just type in an ENS name and it's very easy to remember. It's very friendly. It just makes sense. It's a better user experience. And you're going to hear me keep harping on that. So sorry if it gets annoying. But over time, this has turned from really like a Web3 username into a Web3 profile. And so what I mean by that is if I log into a website, a DApp, as we often call it, like sushi.com, snapshot.org, the ENS site, and so on, my Web3 profile, my ENS profile, really follows me around Web3. And so it's this portable, global, interoperable, whatever word you want to use, Web3 profile. Here's another view of it. Basically, my profile is a name and an address at its core, like I described before, but you can also attach different types of text records. And so it really like enhances the profile rather than just that username. So I have this description here, I have this URL, my social accounts, and so on. And just to really like hone in on that Web3 global username, all of these sites at the bottom are different applications that were developed by independent developers, I guess. And you can see the commonality in all of them is that my profile on that site, my global Web3 profile, is my ENS name. So why is it important? You might be able to understand why it's cool already, but it's fun, it's cool, it's portable, extensible, all this stuff. But ultimately, once again, it improves the crypto user experience. And so I just want to wrap up on this. I won't ramble with the slides for too long, but you have the Ethereum logo up here in the top right corner. And a little hidden fun fact that I like to share is that the ENS logo is actually a nice little wrapper around the Ethereum logo. That was the inspiration behind it. And that kind of fuels everything we do. So I will stop there and save the rest for maybe an in-person workshop as we dive more into the technical details. But hopefully that is a good background on ENS.
Yeah, really good background. And yeah, I think that you also have more time in Rome during the hackathon to get more into the nitty-gritty details of it. But great presentation. And indeed, I was really curious to know from you, I was already thinking about this question. How do you see this evolution from the just a Web3 username, now a Web3 profile? Because even I did that already. I uploaded like my profile picture, a short bio, and my social media handles there for Twitter and other services. What do you think could be, I don't know, the next step for ENS, if there's one, or maybe just expanding on the Web3 profile?
Totally. Yeah. So I think in the past, people have thought about ENS as mostly like a way to simplify payments and stuff like that, kind of maybe like industrial almost. Like it is an identity, but it's more just like using it in wallets. And I think we're seeing the shift of people really using it as just like your social profile or your portable identity. And so the first example that comes to mind is Farcaster. It's a decentralized social media protocol, and they allow you to use your ENS name as your username on the protocol. And so this just really takes the idea of like ENS is your global profile. You take it with you. All of your records, all of your data really just like follow you around Web3. And it's the first time we have that, right? Like in Web2, there's this single sign-on thing where you could either sign on with Google, sign on with Facebook, Twitter, and so on. But it's just annoying, and you have to set a username on each one. And sometimes you don't get the same username on every profile. I think Web3 and smart contracts and ENS enable a world in which you can really have this core profile, bring it with you around the web. And that is, Farcaster is a good example of something that does exactly that today.
Yeah, that's amazing, and I'm on Forecaster as well, as you might know, and I connected my ENS because it's just easier and even makes total sense to do something like that, and I'm glad that a protocol like Forecaster did that. So it's a beautiful, really beautiful integration. And another question on this side that can keep us, at this high level overview. How do you see, you talked about domain name service or DNS in comparison with ENS. How do you see, for example, companies using ENS, I don't know, for various reasons in comparison for what they used DNS for? So, for example, I don't know, there's Adidas.com, Nike. I'm talking about big companies and brandings, and I've seen in the past some, I don't know, some other maybe more advanced companies, I'd say, buying their ENS. How do you think like the ENS ecosystem compares to the DNS one, especially for these big brands?
Totally. I think it was funny how you said Nike and then corrected yourself or changed to Nike because I'm American.
Yeah, Nike.
That was funny. But yeah, so I think there are a number of like cool and interesting ways for companies to use ENS. And first of all, I'll point out an important distinction that like ENS is not trying to replace DNS. Like DNS is great. I can't imagine using the web without DNS today. There are definitely some downsides, but day to day, it works pretty well for most people. I like that I can go to google.com and not type in an IP address. That's wonderful. And so while ENS most of the time is talked about as .eth names, because that's our like blockchain native TLD, which is the most decentralized and the most permissionless and cannot be changed by anybody other than the ENS DAO, which I know we'll get into in a little bit. Companies, if they choose, can bring over their DNS name and also use that in the ENS ecosystem. And so this means Nike.com, I'll turn European, can basically import their DNS name into ENS, or maybe extend is a better word than import, and they can accept crypto payments to Nike.com. And
Wow.
they can just like use it across the web and really like expand the use of their current name. Nike.eth is great, but I don't think Nike is worried about like their domain provider rugging them. I think they're in pretty good hands. And so ENS is of the mind that DNS is great. Let's allow DNS name owners to like extend their name, and also for the people who want a on-chain permissionless decentralized name, then we have many of the same things and some more. But we kind of like respect both worlds. So I'll start off with that, which I think is a lesser known kind of feature. And one other way we've seen Web2 brands like utilize ENS very recently actually is nonprofits. And so we've seen in the past that crypto people are very into like this idea of public goods, which is great. And that I think extends into the Web2 world. Like many nonprofit charities are public goods. Why not? And so sometimes those organizations have found big success in accepting donations via crypto. And what's an easier way to accept crypto payments or donations? ENS over just sharing around some long address. And so one of the largest nonprofits in the world recently kind of tweeted out and made public that they are accepting crypto donations, and they led with the fact that they're accepting it via ENS rather than some long annoying address that most normal people aren't going to really understand. And so those are the first two things that come to mind when you mention the ENS DNS thing.
Nice. Thank you for the explanation. Frank, do you have any question
Yeah.
about?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you, Greg, for carrying Lemon on your shoulder during It Global Paris.
No, he carried
Well,
me.
that's from Urbe.it. And then my real question is, how do you see ENS compared to your competitors? So, for example, I don't know, Unstoppable Domains, the first one that comes into my mind.
Sure.
So Where do you think, where is the value proposition of ENS compared to others?
Yeah, I would say I usually start this explanation to not get too into the weeds at just like the ethos side of things. And I think this also will answer a question in the chat that I see of why and how is ENS decentralized. So some history, I guess. Nick Johnson or Nick.eth is the founder of ENS. Back in 2016 or 2017, he was working at the Ethereum Foundation, which is the team that created Ethereum and Web3 as we know it today. And he started kind of working on this project that could be a naming system for Ethereum because he very early on noticed the problem that would come about when there are just these long addresses and no names on the blockchain, right? It makes sense to have names. And so he was working on this idea at the Ethereum Foundation and was given grant funding by Vitalik and the Ethereum Foundation at the time to spin off and work on this kind of on his own and hire a team to build this out into a successful protocol. And so it is entirely funded by public goods grants. ENS is very much so a public good itself. And there's no VC funding. There's no like token sale where the team put up a ton of liquidity and like set a price and all that stuff. It's really just a totally different approach to a blockchain project and is a public good at its core. And as of 2 years ago, that turned into a DAO. And so now any of the core.eth contracts related to ENS can only be updated by a DAO-wide vote. And a DAO, for those that don't know, is a decentralized autonomous organization. And that means all of these token holders kind of exist in the world, and they can vote on decisions related to smart contracts. And unless a majority, or unless a certain percent of those eligible token holders vote, and the majority says yes, is a for vote, then the smart contracts just simply can't be upgraded. It has to be a community's decision for things to change. This is not the case with any other competitor. Neither is the case that it was spun out by an Ethereum Foundation developer as a grant, and neither is it the case that none of the others, or that we don't have VC funding or any outside funding at all. That is not true for any of the others. So before even kind of getting into the technical details, which I'm sure some people have different preferences on one versus the other, I usually like to start there and kind of leave the rest of the exploration up to the users.
Nice, really interesting deep down. Yeah, I will go on with some spicy questions about the hackathon then, because I mean we're talking about ETHRome here and ENS coming and offering some bounty prizes to hackers. And so first of all, I wanted to know why ENS loves hackathons. So why do you think hackathons are important for the ecosystem, and in particular why are important for the ENS ecosystem?
Totally. Yeah, great question. I think ENS at this point, like some entity related to ENS, sponsors hackathons probably like every month. I feel like we do 10 plus a year. And we really like them because, first of all, they're fun. Just like hanging out with builders and going to new cities and so on is like great. I love Italy, and so I'm excited to be back in Rome. But most importantly, like we see ENS as something that should be a baseline feature in any crypto application because it improves the crypto user experience, right? And as a developer, your goal is, or at least maybe should be, to improve your user's experience and allow them to use Web3 more easily. And ENS so far has been a great way to do that. And we think getting in at the baseline is really the best way to do that. And what that means is, I'm sure at ETHRome, there will be developers new to Web3 who don't know much about any of this stuff. And that's totally great. We want them to come in and learn about ENS as their first project, so that by the time they're working on bigger projects or just exploring more in the ecosystem, they always have ENS in their mind, and they just have it as a tool in their toolkit, and they bring to their other projects. Because I can't think of an app that would be better off without ENS. And so we want to kind of plant that seed early.
True, true, and I also know that you're an hackathon yourself, so you love participating in these hackathons and building cool stuff. Well, as Frank mentioned, we did something cool in Paris, but I think you might also hack in New York in a couple of weeks, or are you hacking, not hacking there? What's your plan?
Yeah. So personally, I love hackathons too because it's a way to learn about new technologies and kind of like I said, pick up new tools in my toolkit as I go on to build new projects. In Paris, we had a great hackathon. I met Limone a few weeks prior at another hackathon actually, and so it's just like picking up new friends at each one, picking up new skills at each one is really great. So in Paris, I was hacking on a personal idea. In New York, ENS is sponsoring, so I will be there helping all the hackers build cool stuff. And the same deal in Rome. Whenever ENS is sponsoring, my job as DevRel is to help these hackers build cool stuff and give them the tools that they need to do so. And so I like seeing both sides of it, of helping hackers and then being a hacker myself. And doing both kind of like helps the other side as well. So it's always a fun dynamic.
Yeah, like seeing both sides, we are seeing that like ourselves, organizing an hackathon, but also participating in hackathons. It's helping us a lot in understanding what are the needs of developers and builders for a weekend of like building in tech. So that's really great, and I'm really enjoying this process of learning from hackathon to hackathon what we could improve for ETHRome and maybe contribute even to, I don't know, inspiring other hackathons doing something different just to improve the model. Because something that I've seen, for example, in these hackathons where I've been is that there are many projects, many cool projects that sometimes get stuck after the hackathon. Of course, I know that there are like different hacker vibes. So there are people that go there just for the bounty hunt, people that go there to experiment and learn a new technology, or people that go there and actually want to build something that, I don't know, maybe they keep doing even after it. And I'm wondering on the ENS side, if you're looking at any of maybe the last two type of like hackers that I've mentioned. So if I don't know if you also have planning in supporting, I don't know, projects that come out of an hackathon and maybe keep supporting them, helping them growing, or maybe it's something that you do more to expose your your technology, your protocol to hackers to experiment with it, and then just leave them on their own for a weekend, and then maybe they I don't know, they come up with something else. What's your
Totally.
take?
No, that's a good question and an interesting topic that I've been thinking more about recently. Because I feel like some companies and protocols that sponsor hackathons are really good at like following up with their developers and really engaging that developer community. And historically, I think we could improve on that. And so heading into some upcoming hackathons, I'm excited to like play around with different ways to do that. And so one example is like upcoming hackathons. I want to give the opportunity to anybody who builds something cool on ENS afterwards to come on one of a few different like calls or spaces that we have to present their project and have them heard by the community. Right? Winning a hackathon or becoming a finalist in a hackathon or winning a bounty or something is very cool for yourself and for validation and for maybe some just like recognition amongst the hackers, but also sharing your projects with the greater community is just like fun and feels good. And we want our hackers to feel good. And so the first step in that is like inviting any hacker who builds something cool on ENS to present their projects in some way to the ENS community afterwards is something that we're definitely going to be implementing going forward. And we also do have a number of grants programs for people to get involved if they're interested in continuing to build their project. People that go to a hackathon and build something for a weekend just to learn a new technology or maybe earn some money, there's nothing wrong with that. Long-term projects are cool, but it's also fun to see little short-term things and how creative people can be in a weekend. So I think supporting both of those and having options for everybody to feel satisfied and excited is really the goal. And so there have to be a few different options on how to handle those types of hackers.
Cool. I agree. Frank, you have any?
Yeah. I have a question regarding hackathons, because I feel like from an hacker perspective, sometimes it's difficult to, during the weekend of an hackathon, it's difficult to understand and to learn a technology, and then to understand how to actually use it and integrate it, and then develop your project. So my question is, do you have any tools or any, for example, documentation, toolkit, whatever, things helping hackers on hacking on ENS in particular during that room? But this is a general purpose question regarding hackathons.
Totally. Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I'm glad you asked. I'll share my screen again here in a sec to go over some cool resources that are some relatively new and some maybe not, but are cool nonetheless. So on the ENS docs site, which is docs.ens.domains, we have this pretty new quick start guide, which should allow anybody to just land on this page and really get up and running with an application that supports ENS names in a few minutes. And, so I have a link to a front-end template, which is a GitHub template, and you can just press use this template, create a new repo, and you're kind of off to the races. This is the stack that I personally used in the hackathon with Limone in Paris, and it worked well for us. So no reason it shouldn't work well for you. And if you'd rather not use like the entire stack and just want to pull out pieces, then I kind of go through all of that in here as well, explaining the different pieces that you might need to support ENS. And using existing libraries makes it relatively easy to do so. And of course, support is very important at these hackathons, which is why at least one person from our team, probably two, will be in Rome on the ground ready to help hackers work on their projects. And so two things that I'll kind of pull out of this quick start guide are, first of all, that template that I just opened a second ago. And also we have this component library called Thorin, which I already have open right here. So Thorin has been around for a while, but not super actively shared because we're still working on updating it. You can see it's rated as alpha. I'd probably classify as more of a beta, but either way, I think it's something that makes it easier for builders to build cool stuff. And so this is a resource that I personally use and recommend that other people use as well. It is a component library that allows you to more easily and quickly build professional looking Web3 front ends or just React front ends in general. And so I have a little playground open here, which is linked from pretty much every page of the Thorin docs. And you can just see, like, to create a really nice looking input with a label and an icon and all that stuff is just this. Actually, I'll delete that little comment. And like, this is very simple code relatively to just have a really nice looking input that works and that handles everything you need it to handle. Our buttons are really nice, can pre-styled with everything. If you wanted to add like a prefix of, usually it would be an icon or something, but it's kind of pre-styled and ready for you to go. So for example, if you were building an application where you had to buy something or register an ENS name and you wanted to show like the price or some extra info in the button, then you just do it like that. And the styles are kind of done for you in a way. And so this component library is something that I use all the time and I recommend hackers use to just like move more quickly and flexibly during their weekends. And I'll just take a scroll through real quick to show you what some of these look like. So one that is quite common and annoying to build on your own is like a modal, right? Or a dialogue, more kind of like complete. And to have it be interactive and have nice animations and have the blurry background and all that stuff. It would take some time to do manually. Not that it's impossible, but these type of things are just made so much easier if you have a component library that is nice and easy to use. And all of these have a link to that playground that I was just in before. So if I want to open a playground and get the exact code and play around with it and change things, it's extremely easy to do so. So like you can see right here, if I change it, then it changes in both the light mockup and the dark mode mockup. So these are a few tools that we have accessible for any hackers or any React developers in general to build on and move more quickly and efficiently during a hackathon.
Well, that's
great.
really, yeah, that's great, especially for me that I'm a backend developer. That will like save me, I don't know how much time in styling components and whatever. And it's really like interesting to see how like, this is just a design system. I don't know how much value this brings to ENS itself, other than, or rather, like giving value just to people out there that want to build cool stuff. Of course, like using the ENS branding, which to me is really cool and clean to use. So that's awesome. And I've seen you using it, but I didn't know there was like this website already here with all these components. So I think I might use it in the future.
Yeah, no, that's great. If we have Limone building with Thorin, then that's a win for ETHRome. And I just want to point out, it looks like you guys linked the link that you guys shared. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. I corrected it.
Yeah, was my fault.
No, all good. Just wanted to make sure people had the resource.
And which was the other link? Maybe you can also link it. I think you can write in the chat, right? It's docs.ens.domains.
Yeah, docs.ens.domains, and you can scroll through everything, but this quick start guide should be able to get you up and running pretty easily.
Wow, yeah, this is awesome. I think it really like kickstarts like one of the best way to kickstart a project, like these templates here. I will give it a try soon.
Awesome.
Like my next side project.
Sweet. Excited to see
cool. Frank, do you have any questions? Any more questions about ENS hackathons?
Let me think. I think I'm okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a one last question. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
My last question is regarding this general part of ENS is, which is your best project, or the best project that you saw built on top of ENS during an hackathon in the recent period?
That's a big question. I don't know.
Or maybe not the best one, but your favorite one for some reason.
I'm trying to think. What was... okay, I don't know if this was actually during a hackathon project or if it was just like somebody's side project that they did in a weekend, but hackathon vibe, I'll say, was... I don't think I'm going to be able to find this. Am I? I don't think I can find a link to it, but
okay.
Basically it was a Rust implementation of a cool aspect of ENS that's more like new and explorative. And it was just something that hadn't been done before, but is a really useful resource to have and enables really cool things to be built. And so it was just like really cool to see this pop out of nowhere and see built. And I guess that's like a little vague, so I'll explain what it could be used to build. So one of the most interesting use cases of ENS, or specifically ENS subdomains, which are like DNS subdomains. We shared docs.ens.domains, docs, and that would be the subdomain. ENS has a similar system. And with ENS, you can actually have off-chain subdomains. So like I said, the core parts of .eth are totally on-chain, permissionless, decentralized, and so on. But if you choose to use an off-chain data source, like a database or a layer 2 or really anything else, then it can become more trusted and more flexible and so on. So just like really flexible is probably the word I would use. And so Coinbase with this built a really cool thing that allows all of Coinbase wallet users, another popular wallet, to have free ENS names as soon as they create their first wallet. And I actually, for some reason, can't link the chat because I haven't connected my YouTube channel to the streaming platform. So if somebody wants to put in the link cb.id, like CB as in Coinbase.id, it is basically any Coinbase wallet user can get a free cb.id name. So I think ENS is cool.cb.id as my example. And that works as an ENS name anywhere a .eth name works. So Etherscan, MetaMask, any wallet, and so on. And the reason it's free for all of their users is because they issue the names via this gateway, this off-chain gateway. And the hackathon project that I was talking about is a third-party custom implementation of that gateway server. And so, long story short, somebody built a really cool infrastructure piece that will make it easier in the future for other dApps, wallets, and so on to spin up similar infrastructure to Coinbase, which I think is a great use case of ENS.
Cool. Yeah. I think that the subdomain thing in particular, I mean, this implementation, really interesting. But like when you were talking about subdomains, it unlocked like a question in my head or something like that. Because I know that there are like subdomains, but I don't have subdomains under my limone.it. And so I'm wondering, like, what do you think is the main use case for these subdomains, or what people at least are using them for?
Totally. Yeah, somebody just asked me this today, so it's very top of mind. And yeah, feel free to ask like random questions about different parts of ENS. It's the type of thing that I get. There's so much to think about that sometimes I just forget kind of important pieces. So subdomains was great that it came to the conversation. So I would say the cb.id kind of like implementation is really the most practical use of subdomains that I could think of. The fact that they're subdomains makes it free, makes it possible to have entirely off-chain, and really manage like in any way you'd like as a developer. All of the flexibility is up to you. And because the goal of ENS is to improve the user experience of Web3, having that flexibility to wallet providers and developers is just like the best tool we can provide them with. So I think that's the one that I look to as like, yes, a lot of people use this. A lot of people know what it is. It's very kind of like clearly valuable, and it's powered by ENS. So that would be the first one. And I'd say there are two more. One is just like personal organization or accounting, right? My like profile is gregsquirrel.eth, but I have a work wallet too related to ENS stuff where I'm a signer on a multi-sig, or I just like do some other stuff. And for organization and transparency's sake, that is just ens.gregsquirrel.eth. I don't want to have to like manage all these different names or keep a list of addresses in my Apple Notes app of like, which address is my work address? How do I see what I've done with that? And so on. Like, no, I know all of my stuff is gregsquirrel.eth, and my ENS part of that is just ens.gregsquirrel.eth. It's kind of like a subfolder of my online profile, right? And so personal organization is like a totally valid use case. And for most people, I think most people could find a way to use it like that, or separating a hot wallet and a cold wallet, or separating different types of profiles, and so on. And then the last one that people seem to enjoy is more like community subdomains. So there's this one, or I guess a good example would be lilnouns.eth, right? Lilnouns is just like this fun NFT project, and some people feel really connected to it. And so they built a custom smart contract, which allows any holder of a lilnoun NFT to register a subdomain of lilnouns.eth. And so I think I have greg.lilnouns.eth because I own a lilnoun, and it's just like fun. You know, it's a verifiable way to prove that I'm part of the lilnouns community, and I can use that anywhere I can use an ENS name. And it really just like unites the people in those communities. So I think the three use cases that come to mind are free and flexible names for the sake of improving the user experience for new crypto users who might not need everything to be on chain. Two would be personal organization, accounting, and stuff like that. And then three would just be like community vibes and just being part of something together.
Yeah, I feel like I mean, I knew about the community stuff because I've also seen, as you mentioned, like even companies. So, like for example, I know that the Sismo crew, like on Twitter, they all have these. They have sismo.it, of course, and then there's I don't know, leo.sismo.it. So even companies use something like that to unite, and even for communities. But maybe we could do something like that for Urbe, because we have urbe.it. And maybe we could give all our members, I don't know, limone.urbe.it, frank.urbe.it.
Yeah.
That would be really cool. And then I also see a lot of value in the organization, like what you mentioned for having ens.gregskrill.heat. That's totally makes sense. Totally makes sense.
Right. And it's good that you mentioned Sismo, because they're actually one of the names with the most amount of subdomains, which I didn't realize until recently.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, recently I was playing around with like a Dune query to show different stuff related to ENS, and they were like pretty high up there. I think they had hundreds, maybe
hundreds.
Definitely hundreds, maybe thousands. I don't know about that, but like they had a lot of subdomains, and so you know, people love Sismo. People love their Sismo subdomains. It's just fun.
Yeah, Sismo loves ENS for sure, and Sismo will be our next host.
Oh, great! I will tune into that one.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Great explanation about the subdomains. And now I want to shift a little bit the focus of our chat, because I want to ask you something about privacy, because you know we are making this hackathon about governance and privacy, and I feel like sometimes there is this conception that ENS is not compatible with privacy, because of course you have your own domain that is linked to your account, to your wallet. So if you make something on chain, you can search for the domain and so on. So do you think that is accurate to say that ENS is incompatible with privacy? What's your vision about that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and something that I think we get maybe a surprising amount of confusion on. So good to have space to clarify. I'll say, like, many times people come up to us at hackathons or events and are kind of like don't want to have their personal name as an ENS name connected to their wallet, which, you know, is totally understandable. Like, not everybody wants to associate a personal legal name with money on a blockchain or money at all, and that is totally valid and probably like good privacy measures. But I think a lot of people miss the point that like an ENS name does not have to be your personal name or your legal name, right? It can be anything at all, or it can just be some random word. Like, I think whenever I was at an event recently, somebody used the word coconut.eth as just an example, and for some reason that stuck with me, right? So, or limone, that's a good one as well. So like, right, limone.eth is clearly not a lemon, you know, he's a person, but his identity, his like the name that he goes by on chain is lemone.eth, and that's not privacy revealing. You know, it's revealing that he likes lemons, but it's not like his personal legal name. It reveals nothing about him. So privacy wise, it's about like establishing kind of a reputation on chain and having that reputation be tied to a name. But the distinction is that that name could be anything. It could be a random word. It could be your name. It could be a fruit. And so the choice is up to you. ENS is not forced on anyone. It is optional. It's opt-in. And so I would not say that ENS is like against privacy in any way. I would say that it's a fun complement to all things crypto, of which privacy is definitely a value. And so we value privacy as much as the next person, and encourage you to get a name that you feel comfortable with representing on chain.
Yeah, true. I totally agree. I see like much more. I love building on-chain reputation, and I think that ENS has been helping me a lot with that. So I see even like more benefit in having, an recognizable and human-readable name on-chain, and I don't see any actual like issues with privacy. Of course, like everybody knows that I'm limone.eth. I know that in Web3, in crypto, there are people that want to, stay hand-on, but I don't see how like ENS could prevent them, to stay hand-on. It's just like a username, like what you have on Twitter or any other like social network. So unless you, I don't know, take a picture of yourself, you can stay hand-on even with ENS, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and like
it's
somebody
just a
said,
username, but you have a lot of lemons behind you. Behind you.
exactly. No, I think lemone is a lemon at this point. But yeah, and as somebody said in the comments, like an ENS name, it's very normal for people to have multiple crypto wallets. You know, it's very normal for people to have multiple like financial wallets in general. And an ENS name, like not all have to have an ENS name. Not all have to have the same ENS name. It is really up to you of how you categorize different wallets. I think in general, people should be like understanding of what happens when you're like crossing the trail of your own wallets. You know, if you have one that you want to keep private and one that you have public, like you have to make sure that you're not interacting between those two. But this is just like a Web3, a crypto thing, nothing related to ENS specifically. So I agree that that kind of optionality is the important part, and ultimately it's up to the users to like know what they're mixing in and be cautious of it. I think it's generally good practice in crypto.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I've seen like Pier Giorgio ask it again about the subdomains. I guess he disconnected while we were talking about it. But I think you mentioned that like again now, like what's the purpose of naming and using names for different wallets? So I think Pier Giorgio, you're good, right? Give us a check if you understood the point here. But yeah, we talked about privacy, and we also know that ETHRome, that's also a governance track. And in the beginning, you mentioned a little bit about the ENS DAO. So I was wondering if you could give us an overview on how it works and why is it important for the ENS ecosystem to have like this DAO and so on.
Totally. Yeah. So I think I went a little deeper earlier than I expected. So I probably talked about most things, but
Okay.
I think, yeah, I guess just like as a background, the ENS DAO is a set of delegates, right, that control the fate of the ENS protocol, specifically .eth. And when I say delegates, I mean, say I have one token, Limone has one token, and Frank has another token. Myself and Frank don't feel necessarily the pull to vote whenever votes come about. And so we want to delegate our voting power to Limone because we trust Limone to use our voting power responsibly. And so we can delegate to Limone, and that then I would call Limone a delegate, somebody who represents multiple people's voting power. And so ultimately, delegates in the ENS DAO, which is hundreds or thousands of people, are the ones that make the core decisions for the ENS protocol. And ultimately, that means upgrading smart contracts and stuff like that. So yeah, the ENS DAO is a set of token holders and delegates that control the ENS smart contracts, which is the ENS protocol.
Yeah, cool. And how do you see, like, I mean, we're talking about hackathon. We talked about privacy and governance. Is there, I don't know, anything that you feel like ENS would love to see people building in this space during the hackathon? Like, I don't know if you have any ideas or stuff that would be cool to do. Anything?
That's a good question. I feel like I always personally,
You're the experimenter. You're the experimenter there. So
whenever I do hackathons, a few weeks in advance, I'm like, okay, I need to come prepared with ideas. I need to do this, and then I always show up. I'm like, yeah, I have no idea. I'm gonna figure it out tonight. So maybe I'm not the best person to ask about ideas in advance of a hackathon, but I should think of some. But generally, just like I find many things, whether it's built specifically for ENS or not, most of the time just like makes sense to include ENS. And an example of a governance application that is not built specifically for ENS, but like supports it and ENS enhances the experience is something like Snapshot, right? Snapshot or Tally or any other governance app, really. When you're scrolling through proposals and people who voted on the proposal and stuff like that, again, we talked about reputation and what it looks like to understand who's voting on a proposal. Would you rather see that Limone.eth voted on this, and therefore it's something that I trust Limone votes yes, that is going to like influence my opinion and kind of like earn me some respect, because people that I know, people whose reputation that kind of like I respect, have done something. That experience would not be the same if Snapshot or Tally did not have those addresses and I just saw a random list of Ethereum addresses voting on a proposal. And so the takeaway there is that regardless of if you're building specifically for ENS or not, it almost always has the opportunity to improve the user experience of your application. And so at a bare minimum, I think I would encourage people to explore that side of it during the hackathon.
Yeah, that's interesting to know, because even like I was thinking, I don't know then like what kind of bounties we will discover like later, what ENS wants to see like with bounty prices and whatever. But I was like thinking, I don't know, about something related to the protocol itself, some improvements or something in that direction, without thinking about everything else that you can do, even like to improve the user experience just by including ENS, and maybe, I don't know, pulling whole day profile information from the ENS into your app, just to have the avatar, the bio, and everything else. So that's cool, and as you said, it's also like pretty easy to do, I think. And it improves a lot the UX. So that's wonderful.
I have one question for Greg.
Sure.
Maybe two. The first one is, do you like to see anything built on top subdomains? And this is the first one. And the second one is, what is one mistake not to make during an hackathon? From an hacker point of view.
Okay. Both good questions. So I think subdomains with governance. I mean, ultimately DAOs, so governance is often associated with DAOs because you're governing like something related to the DAO usually. And so DAOs are, in that sense, a community. And like I said before, people really seem to like this community subdomain thing, and having a name that proves you're part of a community and you can associate with others in that community and you can be proud to kind of represent that name. And so I would say like something that makes it easy for members of your DAO to claim a subdomain is really cool, especially if they don't already have a name. And so it's like their first name can be a free subdomain of your community, and that is cheaper for the user. It's cool for you as the DAO organizers or creators or whatever you consider yourselves, because it's like branding on your side. And overall, it's just like a good experience for everybody involved. And then therefore, when I'm looking at the list of voters, I see names and not addresses, which is just like nice, a better user experience. And so that kind of like community subdomain thing, along with just seeing names rather than addresses, can probably be combined in the governance sense there. And the second question was things not to do as a hacker. Is that right?
Like one
mistake.
Top not mistake.
So I would say my strategy when going into a hackathon, which I think has worked pretty well and I seem to like, is the first night I arrive and I tie down exactly what I'm going to be doing. I come up with a plan, I like spec out the product, and I have a rough idea of like how doable it will be. And then I go and sleep a normal-ish amount, like at least, I don't know, 6 hours, 5-6 hours. And so I can wake up the next day and I can literally code for like 20 or 24 hours straight, and really just like give it my all. Whereas I do know some people that go really hard the first night and then maybe like start to fade throughout the second day, and then they get less interested and they're not able to finish their project or aren't totally satisfied with how it comes out. And so I would say like it's definitely a sprint in terms of like a lot of work in a weekend, but I would pace yourself reasonably, and make sure you have the energy to finish things off, because the last thing you want to do is get to 90% and just crash because you can't take any more. So I would say be careful with your timing and make sure that second day you can stay up as long as you need to finish that project.
Yeah, that's a great advice. Thank you.
Totally.
Yeah. I think it's part of my tactic now, because we tried it. I tried it for the first time with you in Paris, and it worked very well. And even in Warsaw, like last weekend, we didn't go like really hard on the first night. But even like the second one, we slept like normalish amount, as you said, like 5 hours, 6 hours, while staying really focused during the second day. That's the most important thing. So totally agree. And I'm starting to see a pattern of how it really benefits you during the hackathon. We are almost done here, but I have one question that came to my mind when you were talking about subdomains. So how many levels of subdomains one can have? Like only
Infinite.
two? Infinite. So do you know about there's this project or protocol called Metropolis, which was Orca protocol?
Yeah.
That they have they're building these tools for DAO governance with pods, and each pod has a sub pod that can be a delegate in an above layer, part of the DAO, let's say. And so I was thinking about the possibility of somehow integrating ENS subdomains and this protocol, so that on top you have the main name, and it's like the urbe.it, let's say, and then urbe.it as let's talk about ETHRome, because we have different teams like logistics, who's doing the hackathon, who is doing business development, and so on. So each of these teams has a subdomain, so like logistics.ethrome.it or hackathon.ethrome.it, and below the hackathon team there are holding members. So like, Frank.hackathon.ethrome. It's becoming longer, like to say, but I think it can easily represent the structure of the DAO. And if integrated with with Metropolis, which I never used, but I was so interested in reading how it works, could be a good integration, maybe to ease out the user experience there. So I don't know, maybe this is an idea for somebody.
Totally.
to
No,
build the room.
yeah. So they already do what you described.
Ah,
And
okay. Wow. Wow.
and so like and we use it at ENS, right? So there's, I think it's ENS DAO.eth, and within ENS DAO we have these working groups, and so there's like ecosystem working group .ens DAO.eth, and then the ENS working group can have other multi-sigs for like hackathons, right? So it could be like hack.ecosystem working group .ens DAO.eth. Or I don't know exactly how they organize it, but something like that. And so yeah, this is something that already works,
Wow.
I think, at least partially in Metropolis. But if you guys are building other cool like kind of infrastructure stuff for DAOs and organizing multi-sigs and funds and stuff like that, then yeah, ENS is the perfect kind of like protocol to build on top of.
Cool. Nice. Yeah, I will explore more about it because now I'm curious to see
Totally.
how it
Yeah.
works. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we are at 1 hour now, so I think it's enough for us tonight. It's late here in Italy, but there are still people like watching the live. So I'm really glad that you all guys stick with us tonight and during your morning, Greg. So it's morning your time, right? Or afternoon? What's
Afternoon. Yeah.
afternoon?
Okay.
Yeah, because it's very late here.
Yeah.
So was really fun and interesting chat, Greg, with you. Thank you again, and looking forward to see you in Rome in 1 month from now.
Totally. This was fun. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for staying up late.
Thanks,
But
Greg.
I will I'll see you guys soon.
Yep.
Thank you, Greg. See you, Rome.
Yes. Bye-bye.
See you all on Thursday for the next live. Bye. Have a good night.
Yeah. Bye-bye.